Welcome to Season 2 of the Ambitious Broker Podcast, the real estate industry's #1 show covering the most important insights and principles you need to succeed in your career. This show is brought to you by Escrow Technologies, committed to delivering an uncompromised escrow experience since 1983. Visit escrowtech.net for more information. Please welcome the host of the Ambitious Broker Podcast, your real estate industry mentor and coach, Roger Hance.
Welcome back to the Ambitious Broker Podcast. Roger, with all of your industry expertise, experience, you've been able to see all of these trends over time. I want to ask you, what do you see as the major threats today to the industry as we know it?
Well, that's a big question, I think. But I think in terms of an outside threat, the biggest threat is how we're handling these transitions and these changes in the industry. But put our self-imposed problems aside right now, and it has to be what's happening with proptech or Wall Street or the new technology that's coming about. It's a very interesting thing that's happening, and I don't think people are paying a lot of attention to it, although they kind of hear about it. But we call it proptech, or basically it's companies that believe that with new technology they can come in and change the game, and make it easier, make it cheaper, and so forth. So their idea is to disrupt, and for the most part, Wall Street or venture capital companies, Christopher, they look to disrupt industries. They want to come in, as an example, retail and Amazon, right? You come along and you put some new technology into retail, and you basically give it 15 years of losing a lot of money, and then the next thing you have Amazon and the second richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos. And it just takes time and a lot of money, but you radically disrupt how the retail industry is run, because you've entered a new business model. So as they look around the industry today, they see real estate as one of the next big industries to be disruptive in. And we too often see companies that have come here and failed, like say a Purple Brick or something like that. And we forget that there are hundreds of Amazon type companies that came and failed. But they keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming. And the way the venture capital companies work is they invest in a lot of different entities. They lose on a lot, but the ones they hit on are so big that it's overall a big hit, and that's the way they think. So they look specifically for industries that they can revolutionize. There's a company called Fifth Wall Ventures, a guy named Vic Chawala, who's they're investors in Open Door, a couple of new insurance startups within the real estate industry, and they basically said, real estate is the world's largest asset class, and because of that, they want it. And specifically, and here's what bothers me when I talk to real estate agents today. As you know, I'm pushing, well over 45 years in this business. And, I've done pretty much all there is in the business. And I've consulted now with some of these companies that are trying to break through. And I feel like a cheater, because I love my profession. I love the real estate industry. I love what it's done for my life. And I love its potential for other people within the industry. And then I see these guys come in, and they're basically disrespect us tremendously. So here's the general big picture view of how Wall Street sees real estate agents. They see them as, first, overpaid, grossly overpaid. Secondly, they see them as unorganized. And frankly, it's really true. It's become a very disruptive and disorganized industry today. The companies know it. The Association of Realtors is more messed up than they've ever been ever. So they're very unorganized. And this is partly, Christopher, because the real estate companies, for their own survival, started telling agents that it's all about them. It's their own individual businesses, and they should go out and promote their own business. And in the meantime, they have devalued the brand of every real estate company out there. And as they've devalued the brands, they've opened the door for these guys to come in. So they see us as overpaid. They see us as unorganized. They see us as lazy. They see us as unsophisticated. And then they see us as intentionally trying to complicate the system. I've consulted with a number of firms, and it's interesting in their investors deck. They have one or two slides typically that's devoted to explaining to potential investors that real estate people have these enormous contracts. You know, they're 18 pages, and then you add all the other add-ins, and you have 30-some pages of contract, and that 80% of the contracts are to protect the realtor, not protect the client. That it's to make it look complicated when it shouldn't be complicated. So, Chihuahua, who's from, again, the Fifth Wall Ventures company, he says that he sees the money accelerating into the industry. There's going to be more and more coming into the industry. And it shouldn't be a surprise because, in his word, it's the largest asset and largest market on earth, and it's handled amongst the most backward people in business. So that's the level of disrespect that they generally have for us. And I hate to say it, but in a lot of ways, we're kind of earning it. So we're inviting this in. We're going to have a graphic for the videos that people can see, and it shows basically a market opportunity. And there's a $1.6 trillion revenue potential in the real estate business. And so it's larger than food, it's larger than a lot of other retail, it's larger than a lot of stuff. And so it's massive, and they want their piece of it. They want their piece of it. So just to give all the listeners an idea about the magnitude of this, I don't think that most real estate agents understand exactly what's happening, but here's the short version. Since 2015, there has been $45 billion invested into new brands and new business models of companies in real estate. And that covers a broad spectrum. It's not just real estate brokerage, it's also the lending business and other things, insurance and so forth. But they're after this business. Of the 45 billion, 15 billion, or 1/3 of that, has been in the year 2021 alone. So 1/3, so as Mr. Chihuahua says, it's moving rapidly. So we look back and we go, well, so they think we're lazy and all that stuff. Well, that's their opinion. Well, that's true, but listen to the opinion of a guy named Jerry Matthews. A lot of people won't know, but he's a guru. He's a consultant. He does a lot of brainstorming with and has some of these think tanks with smart people around the industry. And he's got this book. It's called Simplify. He writes these little thin books. They're kind of interesting. But he was talking about how when he gets together with these people in the think tanks, and they start trying to figure out how are we going to deal with the industry as it is and get creative and solve problems, they say this is what they feel like they're dealing with. And pardon me for reading this, but it says, today the real estate field is filled with fruit flies and zombies. Fruit flies and zombies, it says, in the words of one of the real estate consultants. Agents, brokers, and consumers tend to focus on the short-lived trends which are proliferating like fruit flies. So they're chasing the hot little new things. Things that like the latest mobile app or the controversial blog or the tweet or things like that. But they flash and then they go away. They flash and they go away. But they distract people in real estate from things that really matter. So this is something that is important. So it goes on to say, at the other end of the spectrum are the zombies. What the people, these real estate people, these zombies, these gurus, the guys in the think tanks are saying, real estate agents are zombies. Well, what do you mean by that? The real estate professionals that are zombies are simply going through the motions without thinking about what may lie ahead. What might lie ahead. So my appeal to all of you ambitious brokers out there is please pay attention. It's so obvious that you're not paying attention that they call you a zombie. You're not even considered in the big boys thinking out there and how we're going to strategize. They figure how they're going to think around you because you're not paying any attention, and they'll get away with it. So many people, it goes on to say, think that this will pass and everything will be back to normal again. And the inertia is so powerful, the obstacle to meaningful change on any level. So there are people today who think the entire industry is a zombie, said this one consultant. They're very eager to just cut off our heads. So this is what one particular person said that deals in the industry. So we have these outside people who say real estate agents aren't organized, they're not smart, they're not paying attention, they're unsophisticated. You got people within our industry saying that. And then the National Association of Realtors published what they call the danger report in, I think, 2015. And it said that the number one problem facing real estate agents today, the number one most dangerous trend, is that the industry is saddled with a large number of part-time, untrained, unethical, or incompetent agents, and that the knowledge gap is threatening the credibility of the industry. They wrote this in 2015. So this will give you an idea that, coincidentally, that's when a lot of the money started coming into the industry. So what's the big problem? Well, I guess one of the biggest problem is that the people in the industry got to pay attention, got to step up and say, we've got to start looking at the quality of our industry. But in the meantime, the fire has started. So again, getting back to this, they have put $45 billion in 1 year alone, Christopher. 463 firms invested money into this multi-billion dollar pool of money that's going on right now. So I think to sum it up real quickly, there's our problem. And it goes a little step further now. And that is, it's about data. People are selling data right now. I was in a conversation with the head guy of a large title company who was telling me about how some of these companies out here, through their CRM systems and so forth, are literally taking people's data and selling them to the outside world, using all this artificial intelligent ran systems to try to promote their other businesses, but they're selling it and making money, and a lot of money. So there's a lot of ways for people to use the brokerage business and the data that comes from the brokerage business to make a lot of money. These are areas that real estate brokers are typically not getting into. So, and there's a fellow who said that, I want to quote something again if I can. Another factor that's driving the money, like I said, is data. And this fellow named Cofano, who's also in that world, says that in residential real estate, fundamentally nothing can happen until the data was set free. So he says the real estate world has remained stagnant until the data was set free. So as long as the data resided within the collective control of the brokerage companies or within the MLSs, that there could be no broad-based innovation. So what these people from Wall Street basically are saying is that we had to get the MLS information, the real estate agents' information away from them so that we could put our machines to work on their industry so we can disrupt it. and we can come in and play games with people. He goes on to say that Zillow was founded in '06, and he sees them as the pivotal force for freeing data. So Wall Street's saying, boy, we really needed Zillow to come along and free up this data. And the question is, what do they mean by freeing up the data? And what do you mean by, we got to get it away from and out of the control of the brokerage companies? This is all behind the scenes, but it's plotted and it's intended to mess with the industry. So there's another principal at venture capital company called Camber Creek. And he said, I think the reason is that people have realized that this is just the tip of the iceberg right now for all the different ways that real estate can be disrupted. So in other words, they not only see the brokerage business and they see the data, they said those two things are just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to go after more and more and more ways to do this. So the short version of this is that Wall Street has said, we're going to spend billions of dollars to screw up your profession and to ruin your income capabilities. And while we may not take you out of the business, we're sure intent on changing the role of an agent in the business. So he had mentioned the value of Zillow. So I'm going to, for the video again, we're going to put up a graphic, Christopher, that says, that gives you, that will show our viewers all the various logos from the companies that have been invested in. And this is just a fraction of them, but you see the graphic right now, and there's dozens and dozens of them. But today, and for the rest of our short time together here, what do you say we talk about Zillow?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Because they seem to be the pivotal, what did the guy call them? The pivotal force in freeing data. So I don't think anybody that sells real estate saw them as this freeing force, this Darth Vader coming down, although I think they're kind of a Darth Vader. So I've always thought of them more as a wolf in sheep's clothing, because as you can see, they've had master plans that are not obvious to the world. They got their plan. They're dealing with these people that they don't think are very smart. They're going to sneak in under the rug or through the back door and then pull a big bag over their face and then beat them up. And this is kind of where they're at. So Zillow was founded in 2006, and they had they claimed that they were never going to be a broker. They'd never be a competitor of the broker, but they lied. And they lied in a big, big way. Christopher, I was president of one of the associations of realtors for a while in 2014, and I was fighting so badly with these guys. And they actually came into one of our board of directors meetings, and we questioned them about a contract they wanted. And one of the things I said to them was, it seems like you want to be in the MLS business or you want to be a real estate broker. And they said, absolutely not. We have no intentions of doing that. And of course, they now do both. So Zillow is the big monster that I hope our viewers will take a look at. But let's see what they did. They created what they called a Zestimate. And in the vernacular of the data companies today, it is a AVM, or automated valuation model. So what they basically, a lot of these guys have said, is that we can create these computer algorithms that will go out and predict the value of properties and so forth. And so they put this estimate out there to the world, and all of a sudden Zillow was able to get traction where none of the previous companies was able to do it, because they suddenly had a software program that your neighbor could go on and say, hey, what did Christopher pay for his house? Or what's he owe on his house? Or so this voyeurism sort of entered the game, and it really became their magic app. And so then, to add to the ugliness, they were able to convince the real estate industry that they should give them all their listings and all their listing information. So suddenly, you had Zillow, who said they would never be an MLS, became the nation's largest MLS because they were getting everybody's listings. So here was the bad news. When they did, and the clients saw their listings on there, all of a sudden you had a lot of problems. One was when you put a listing up there, it was hard to get it out. So you would have a seller who would change his mind about wanting his property listed, and then he couldn't get the property out of Zillow. And the real estate agents couldn't get it out. So now he's got people walking up to his door, knocking on his door, and bothering them when they don't want to sell their house anymore. Or else the property sells, the buyer moves in, and now you have people knocking on the new buyer's door and bothering them. And then you've got a lot of inaccurate data out there, but they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year to reach the eyeballs of the public. And that's something that no real estate company is able to do. So they're slowly gathering more and more credibility as time went on. First, they had their data, they had his estimate, and then now we start giving them listing information. So the problem with the listing information is that it did exactly what that fella, what was the name again? Cafano. Exactly what Cafano said would happen. We got to get the data away from the brokers. We got to get the data away from the brokers, and when we do, then we can be disruptive, and we can go innovate around them. So Zillow was the one who made that happen. They came along, teased everybody, and then the next thing you know, they got listings being put in, and then they got clients, members of the public, who suddenly started feeling that Zillow was a pretty credible entity, and they deserved zero credibility. They didn't ever sell a house, and yet the real estate industry has done it for 100 years. And our people are trained to do it and so forth. But all of a sudden, I was hearing from a lot of the people I coach and some of the owners that I consult with are saying, these clients are coming back and saying, I don't agree with your price. Zillow says it should be worth this, or Zillow says it should be that. Or somebody bought a house and they're told, well, gosh, you paid too much. Zillow said your house is only worth this. And it's a ludicrous thought in a way. Imagine how would you feel, Christopher, and I'm going to ask you this sincerely, if I listed your house for $800,000 and I said I'm going to advertise it on Zillow, and you went to Zillow and saw your house, and you saw right below your $800,000 offering price, Zillow said it's worth $700,000.
When did they become the appraiser?
Well, that's what their AVM does. That's what their estimate is. It's a computerized, I've never saw your house, never saw the view, never saw the condition of your house, yet somehow what you think of their estimate as a member of the public somehow exceeds the knowledge that a broker brings to it. But you got to admit, Christopher, you were selling your house and you wanted $700,000 and Zillow said it's worth $600,000. Or you wanted $800,000 and they said it was worth $700,000, you would be going, you would think I was out of my mind to advertise there.
Correct. I would want you
Right?
to take down the listing immediately.
Yeah, I spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in newspaper advertising during the years that I owned my real estate company. And the thought of ever running an ad in the LA Times where I said the seller wants $800,000, but the editor of the LA Times only thinks it's worth $750,000 would have been insane. And yet we've allowed this kind of thing to take place. And in doing so, they've started to gain some credibility. One of the really negative things, of course, is that it's been bad for consumers because of the misinformation, the lies, and so forth. But it's really been bad for the real estate industry because Zillow and the other portals out there have basically taken all the sign calls away. So imagine that I list your house, Christopher, and I go in and you share all the things that you love about the house. It's great, you just did this upgrade, or you just added a pool, or you just did all these great things. And now, in the past world, I would take that information, come back, I'd go throw an ad in the newspaper, I'd pass out flyers, And the people would call me because I know the intimate detail of your house. Not with Zillow. Not with Zillow. Because with Zillow, they take and they run people's pictures right next to the house, and the consumer comes in and mistakenly thinks that one of those three people are the listing agent. They called that one of those three people, each of which paid Zillow to be there next to my listing. And so the consumer calls those people, and when they answer the phone, they've never seen your house. So they're intentionally diverting a prospective buyer away from someone who understands your house to someone who has no idea what your house is about, could never pitch the wonders of your home at all. So, and then the fact that it's all been online, we've had one other little problem. And that problem is what we've always referred to as sign calls. So you would drive around a neighborhood, you'd see a house, and you'd see a sign, and you'd call the listing broker. The logical thing to do, the listing broker knows the most about the house, but instead you end up going on some mobile app, going on to one of these data sources like Zillow, and here again you're directed away from the real estate agent. So this Zillow has come up and been a big problem, to us. Then compounded with this, they start a program called Zillow Offers. Have you heard of them, Christopher?
No, sir.
Okay, well, Zillow Offers is what they refer to as their iBuyer program. So understand that the real goal of these companies is to disrupt how you do business, to eventually take your business away from you. And yet we're giving them our sign calls. We're giving them our listings to advertise so they can turn around and sell my information to some other competitor of mine, real estate agent. I don't get it. Okay? Now they're going a step further. Now they're starting an iBuyer program. So now they actually become competitors for the listing. So I want to go out and get a listing from someone who wants to sell their home, and all of a sudden Zillow comes along and says, well, we'll buy it from you. Okay. So
I guess didn't they promise not to get into that business? Didn't they promise not to get into that business in the beginning?
Yeah, they promised they wouldn't be brokers. They promised they wouldn't be an MLS. They promised all kinds of things until they got the industry addicted to them. And like any good drug dealer, once you got addicted, then they can start abusing. And so that's what's basically happened. iBuyer comes along, and on the surface, it looks like a pretty good deal. A buyer, somebody who wants to sell their house, just says, hey, they're going to save me all these problems, and I'm going to, be able to just sell it, never have to list it with someone. Okay. But then what happens? Well, we'll get to that in a second. But basically, they took away listings from potential buyers as they bought it themselves. So their iBuyer program counted on their algorithms, their valuation models, and so forth. And they were bad. And they lied to customers. They caused the industry a lot of grief because they had credibility when they were lying, sometimes more than the real estate agent. And so, lo and behold, November of 2021, they dropped the iBuyer program. So why did they drop it? Well, because they lost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on the program. So this Zestimate that everyone was, quoting and that they used to buy homes turned out to cost them. It was such a bad program that when they used it, it cost them hundreds of millions of their own dollars in doing so.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, and yet this is what we have been faced with. So, but it goes further. They decide they want to get out of the business now. Now understand they've been taking inventory away from buyers. And just coincidentally, we're in the lowest inventory in the history of real estate. We have fewer homes for sale ever since we have been measuring and keeping track of how many houses are listed. So we're at the lowest period of time for buyers to find houses. You got buyers stacked up and having a fight with one another and cry because they didn't get the house they wanted. And while that's all happening, these guys are sucking inventory off the street from the public and from buyers or from the real estate agents. So they eventually go out of business. What happens? They have to lay off literally 25% of their entire workforce. They laid off when they discontinued this. But they had 18,000 homes at that time. 18,000 homes that could have been on the active market, that real estate agents could have sold, that sellers could have moved on happily and made more money probably, and buyers would have had instead of Zillow owning. So, well, that's okay, you'd say, right? Because they're just going to turn around, put them back in the market, and people can buy them. Except for that's not what has happened. Instead, what they've done is they had about over 9,000 homes in their personal inventory. They had 8,000 houses that were in escrow at the time they decided to stop the program. So basically, they got 18,000 homes now. And what do? They turn around and sell virtually all of them to bulk people, bulk buyers. So if we go back to the danger report that I talked about that was written by the NAR, it turns out that in 2015, the danger report actually said the 8th most dangerous trend to a real estate agent is all the companies that are out there buying homes in bulk, institutional purchasers. Companies like Blackstone with Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent, Colony American Homes, Starwood Waypoint, Alta Source Portfolio, American Residential, Silver Bay. These are all companies that give you an idea. Blackstone owned 43,000 homes, single-family homes that aren't available for buyers. They rent them out.
They're just being rented out. They're not available. They're no longer available for purchase.
That's correct. Another home, American Homes for Rent, 27,000 homes. So with just the companies that I mentioned to you, they currently own 20, 30, 45, about 150,000 homes that those companies own, just those companies. And Zillow turned around and sold more to those people. And we only sell 5 million homes nationwide a year, roughly. So that's a huge percentage of inventory taken off the street. So it's really, it's really hurting the industry. It's hurting consumers. Then they go and they buy a company just last year, the year before last, called Showing Time. And Showing Time is a company that real estate agents pay to use, where it helps arrange buyers, scheduling buyers to see homes that are listed for sale. So they paid $500 million for that. So just to give you some reference to this, RE/MAX is one of the best known quality brands of real estate in the country. And their market value today, because they're publicly traded, if you had $500 million, you could buy all of RE/MAX. They instead chose to buy a company called Showing Time. Now think about that for a second. What in the world could a scheduling company have that's worth $500 million? More than one of the most successful real estate companies in the country. They bought a scheduling company instead. And this goes back to what was said earlier by one of the Wall Street guys, and that is free up the data. They have all the information about buyers and sellers and timing of all these people, and a lot of detail that's put into this Showing Time database. And apparently it's valuable enough to be worth more than the entire RE/MAX organization's worth. So, how important is it we pay attention to this right now? So you've got an organization in Zillow that has wrongfully, or certainly without deserving to be, now considered more credible than realtors themselves or real estate agents. And so we've given it away, and we've got to think about what to do kind of from here. So what's next for Zillow? Because just to give you an idea of how badly this has been for Zillow, they are a publicly traded organization. At one point this year, their stock was worth $149 per share. That was a collective value of $38 billion. $38 billion. Now, this company that has now had to go away from iBuyers, that is now losing hundreds of millions of dollars a year, has to find a way to make up for that damage. Their stock went from $149 to $46 in the last 12 months. They've lost almost 70% of their market value. So what are they going to do? How are they going to make up for this? And again, to bring some perspective to this and all of our listeners, you're talking about a company that had a market cap of $38 billion. If we were Elon Musk, instead of buying Twitter for $45 billion, we could go buy Zillow for $38 billion. That's what we could have done. However, by waiting 12 months, their market share has dropped to $12 billion. They've lost $26 billion in value in just the last 12 months. Okay. So again, put it in perspective, you could buy every real estate company in the country for the $26 billion they lost in 1 year. So what do you think they're going to do now? How are they going to make up for this? And they've already told us. They call it Zillow 3.0, and they're basically going to be trying to make money from ancillary services. Although their mortgage company lost $50 million last year, they believe that that's a future for them. And the way they're going to do it is they're going to try to convert these leads that got sold to commission sales. So they're going to take my listings as a real estate agent, put it on their site, sell the information to another real estate agent, and then earn a commission off of the buyers that come in off of that advertisement. Buyers that should be coming to me. If I wasn't too stupid or stupid enough to put my listings out on Zillow. So we're talking about this radical drop in market value, which means that they're really on the run, right now. So let's kind of wrap this up right now, and let's say, well, what should you do? What should real estate agents do? And the first thing that you've got to do is you have to stop being a zombie. Jerry Matthews in the real estate industry thinks you're a zombie. All it means is you're not paying attention. So please be alert. Demand professionalism from everybody around you. And then look to yourself and those around you as a source of building value. How do I become more valuable to a consumer? And how can I spread that word around out there? That may be the topic for another one of our Ambitious Broker episodes before the year is over. But you've got to build value, and you've got to start paying attention, because this is all being done behind your back. And it's costing you money. It's going to hurt you. Next thing to do, stop supporting Zillow. Why in the world do you want to give your information away to Zillow? So tell your colleagues, go to the owners of your companies right now and say, I don't want to support Zillow anymore. Now, I can tell you this, I've talked to lots and lots of brokers out there. I've consulted with many of them. I've helped start, as you know, Christopher, probably 15 real estate companies I've helped start besides my own. And in talking with all of them, they don't like Zillow. They think it's bad for the industry. The leaders of these companies think it's bad for the industry. So I asked the question, then why do you do it? Why do you continue to support this organization that you know has got a gun pointed at your head? And their typical response goes something like this. our agents aren't smart enough to realize how big a problem it is, and they don't have the skills to explain it to a consumer. So when a consumer starts saying, why isn't my house in Zillow? They don't have the ability to explain it to them to satisfy a consumer. Well, I know a lot of brokers who don't put their listings in now, and they're not having a problem with it. But that's what the real estate owners are telling me. Their agents are afraid that the consumers won't like it, and they don't have the ability to communicate to a consumer the problem it is for them. Okay? And the brokers are afraid that if those agents can't learn how to deal with that they'll go to a different company. One of the big Los Angeles companies, the owner I've known for years, specifically said to me, I hate those guys. It's the worst thing that ever happened in real estate. And I said, well, why do you continue to deal with them? And he says, I would stop in a minute. He goes, I just can't be the first. I can't be the first to do it. So I'm asking all the people watching this video right now, you want to do yourself a favor? Go back to your owners and say to them, we want out. We don't want to be part of this anymore. I want my sign calls back. I want the credibility of my knowledge coming back to me, not there. And basically, it's going to be in your hands. You're the one that's got to push this thing through. And then finally, what to do, I believe, is demand that your local MLS, your association of realtors, and your real estate companies that you work for. One of the most important things you can do right now today, while you've got Zillow and others on the run right now, is you need to go back to these leaders and you need to say to them, I no longer want my listings to enter these portals unbranded. There was a MLS rule that came up, I don't know exactly when, let's call it 20 years ago. And basically what it said was that when you put a listing into multiple, it cannot be branded. So I can't put my name on it. I can't put my phone number on it. I can't have my for sale sign in the picture that goes into the multiple listing service. And the reason for that is so they can take that listing, throw it out to Zillow and the places, and make the public think it's a Zillow listing or that it's somebody else's listing. It's one of those three people that are buying ads. So the smartest thing right now we can do is go back to these people and say, I want to brand my listings. I want the no branding rule for MLS listings to go away. It's a decision that could be made in 5 minutes. And I know that there's people in the industry who are in favor of it. So go back to everybody, talk to all of your colleagues, talk to the owners of your companies and get them to talk to the MLSs and say, stop the rule for branding, for not allowing the brand. So we want to brand all of the photographs that go into the MLS now. And that would change so much and help turn things around, and then demand some quality from the people around you. So that's my opinion, and that's kind of what's happened, Christopher. I would really like to know what people that are watching this are thinking. Some of them, I believe most would agree. A lot maybe didn't understand the depth of some of these issues, but we swore that this year we were going to be more interactive. And so I'm asking all of you watching the video, if you think you know more than I do, and you got a different opinion, or you just got a different opinion, I want to know about it. And I'd like to have an open discussion about it. I would like to know why you still put your listings out there when you know how badly it's hurting you now. So I have an email address. It'll be on the screen for the videos. It's Roger Hance, ROGERHANCE @msn.com. And I'd like to know what you think. Send me an email and tell me you agree with me, or send me an email and tell me why I'm wrong. And maybe we'll even bring up some of your thoughts on a future episode. So I think that's our day today.